Episode 47, and we're starting with a crypto sell-off. Yep. I didn't key you up for this one, Tony, but crypto is actively selling off.
I know, it's brutal, but I've been slowly DCAing just because. Yeah. Episode 47, so let's see. Earnings season's also kicked off this week, which makes it even more interesting. Tara's actually having on Saturday. So, I think a little over half the Mag7. Let's see, Apple, Tesla, Meta, and Microsoft had their earnings this week. So we'll touch on that just a little bit. And then, still all the rage, and we kind of mentioned it last week with DeepSeek, is people are still trying to digest everything about it and what happened. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about that. And maybe a little bit more Tesla. Tesla's always interesting to talk about. So they had earnings. Elon made a bunch of promises, and so maybe we'll dive into a little bit of that. Mainly, I think, around FSD, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Mag7, most of Mag7 kicked off or did earnings last week, and people were paying heavy attention because the whole AI story is centered around earnings. I think for the most part, people wanted to see. I don't know what all the expectations were going into it, but AI was a big piece of that, and trying to see how much AI has benefited these companies was probably a big anticipation.
Yeah.
But to sum it up, I think Apple had earnings later in the week. They beat their earnings reports, but the news out of them was that their iPhone sales were down.
Yeah.
Particularly in China, I think they were more down, but their services were up. I was actually seeing this chart, and I think their services business represents about 25 billion in revenue, which is bigger than many whole companies
Yeah.
in themselves. So their services is really pumping up now, which is good for Apple because we know that their hardware isn't really innovating.
Yeah.
So they need to make it up with services like Apple TV. I think Apple TV is probably their biggest bet in terms of services, but they have like music and other stuff.
Yeah. Apple is weird. It dropped like quite a bit to like almost 100 or something because news came out that they're no longer the number one phone provider in China, which I think set off the fears for earnings. And still came down, but Apple is up. Even though iPhone sales were down like, I don't know, it's like 9 or 10% or something like that. But no, people are still holding on to like these services and whatever Apple Intelligence is. Apparently, Tim Cook says like once you use it, you'll never stop using it.
I've heard say that.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know. I do think they have like an innovation problem, right? It's like what's the next Apple thing? And we still haven't seen it. Like the Vision Pro, everybody was banking on that, but it's kind of fizzled, right? Which is not what has happened. Like the Apple Watch, people were kind of thinking it was fizzled, but it like was a surprise that it kind of took off and such. Same thing with the AirPods, but like with the Vision Pro, it's actually fizzled. Like
Yeah.
I'm confident in saying it's fizzled. Like nobody talks about it at all.
I thought Tim Cook might have announced his retirement at this earnings. I feel like this is the year Tim Cook is going to retire.
Think so?
I think so. And if he didn't do it at this earnings, I bet he would do it at the September event, if he's going to do it.
If he's gonna do it,
Yeah.
okay. Could be interesting.
But so Apple stock was actually up 5.3% to end the week.
Yep.
So positive. Check. The next company that this wasn't in order of how they reported, just in order of how we took it down, but Tesla was a big one. They had been selling off quite a bit leading up into earnings. I think it got as low as 380 at one point.
Yeah.
But they missed on their earnings by a lot, actually. They had some pretty bad numbers, lower margins, lower sales. However, they were up to end the week by about 2.5%. I think a lot of that is because of their AI story. There's probably some tailwind with that as well. And the big thing that is making the news is Elon announced that unsupervised full self-driving will be launching in Austin June. And what that means is unsupervised essentially means you can fall asleep in the car
Yeah.
and it's legal.
Yeah, and I think Elon this time was also on the earnings call, and so I was like, oh, okay, he's probably gonna promise some outrageous things, and that's what's gonna pop the stock, and that's kind of what happened. So over a couple of things, I guess a lot of his focus shifted away from cars and more like Optimus. He talked about Optimus, and that's gonna be like where Tesla's real money is coming from, like a $10 trillion opportunity, and I think they're gonna start launching the robot next year or by the end of this year. It's going to
In
launch
Elon time.
Optimus at the end of this year and start mass, like whatever, release next year. And it's like, really? But anyways, yeah, so Elon was there to kind of like save the day, kind of like talk around the poor
Yeah.
car business.
Yeah, Tesla stock was so volatile. I mean, it just went down, then went up, then finished up. Next was Meta. And so Meta was actually the, I guess, best performer of the week.
Mhm.
I would say there's some Trump tailwind on this one as well, because I think Wall Street's been like waiting for earnings, but then for these companies that are in cahoots with Trump, they have decent or good earnings and they're like,
Yeah,
let's buy in. Like
yeah,
nothing's, too concerning.
yeah,
But Meta beat earnings. And a lot of that was due to their narrative around ad revenue increasing and how AI is helping that. And they closed the week 10% up,
yeah. Made it.
which is pretty big for, a company this size.
Yeah, you know me. I've always been bullish on Meta, and I keep kicking myself for not continuing to buy more. Like I should have gone more all in than I
When
already was.
when I was buying at 560 and you're waiting for 500,
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, no, they're killing it. And I think what helped also is like, I think Zuckerberg came out earlier in the week before earnings. It talked a little about their CapEx spend and how they were planning to spend it was like some like $60 billion on CapEx, which was it's just a
Yeah.
lot, but it's positive because it's again expanding Meta's AI capabilities.
Yeah.
So
I think that coupled,
earnings could have only gone up because of the DeepSeek news. It could have been like, all right, they're spending this much. Maybe it'd actually be less because of whatever efficiencies they find in DeepSeek they can implement, etc. But anyways, so just a lot of bullish things actually going in to Meta's earnings. Uh,
I think that CapEx news coupled with the announcement they made earlier last week, right? Or was it 2 Mondays ago where Zuck said they're laying off 10% of staff
yeah, that was like a couple of weeks ago.
targeted towards low performers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which that was a story in and of itself too.
Yeah.
Low performers. Did we talk
Yeah.
about that? I don't remember. I don't think we did.
I don't think we did.
Yeah,
But yeah, Meta is a big one. That one definitely helped my stock portfolio.
mine it flowed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the last one is Microsoft. It was another beat, but they missed on cloud revenue. And this was actually the only Mag7 stock that did earnings last week that was down at the end of the week. They were down 2%, mostly because around their cloud narrative and how they missed on that revenue. And I think Microsoft probably doesn't have the AI story necessarily weaved in yet in terms of how it's improving efficiency.
surprising, right?
Yeah. They've been pretty, like we talked last week around how Satya wasn't at the inauguration. I feel like Microsoft in general have been pretty quiet. The last time I remember hearing anything from Satya was the whole OpenAI debacle last year
Yeah,
when Sam was trying to get ousted.
yeah.
Yep. Any comments on Microsoft?
No, I mean, they're kind of boring. I'm still trying to figure out like what, right? Microsoft is like, I guess it's still like, how are they going to take advantage of their partnership with OpenAI, which I just really haven't really seen any positive things around it, to be honest. Like, at least like Google, at least they're just throwing Gemini into everything, but like Microsoft, like, I know they're trying to integrate it with cloud, whatever, but I just haven't seen like the outcome of it yet necessarily. Bing Chat, I feel like Bing Chat has kind of like died down. And so I don't
Oh
really
yeah.
know like what's the future story of that. Anyways, at least from a consumer perspective. From a business perspective, yeah, I still I don't know. Is it like really in office? Like I'd expect more office news around integration with their AI, but I just haven't really seen anything.
Yeah.
Either that is a mindshare problem or people just don't really care or they're not doing anything with it. So it's kind of strange, to be
It
frank.
is. Okay, talk about our headline, our story, the story that's been disrupting the tech industry for the last
Mhm.
week and a half now.
Yeah.
DeepSeek or Think.
DeepSeek.
Tony, I haven't been keeping too much up with DeepSeek, but I do have been hearing a lot about it. I don't know if it's something you want to maybe like explain more, or do you just want to like talk about different things we see on our notes here?
Yeah, I guess. So I guess the biggest thing, right? I think people have tried to spend a little bit more time to figure out like how much more cost efficient is it? And I think a lot of people are trying to like, okay, this whatever $5-10 million number they said it costs them to develop, like possible or not? And I think a lot of people are just kind of called BS on it, right? Like there's rumors and such that they've actually spent billions, but this $5-10 million number was just like what it cost them to run the final training round of what they presented to everybody, right? But they actually have this huge server farm and they just excluded it as part of all the CapEx they basically excluded, and some of it has been funded by the Chinese government, and so that's why they didn't include it. It's like all sorts of weird things, and it's just one of those things that you will never actually know. But again, I think more people have spent more time digging into what they actually did, and I've read through a few different versions or different commentary from people, and it's either they did a very like the improvements they made were actually very minimal if you really look at it, but it's just the way they trained it is where they got some of the efficiency, and it wasn't as groundbreaking as
Yeah.
everybody initially thought, right?
I heard something like someone said, or not Nvidia, sorry, copy and
OpenAI,
paste of OpenAI's.
yeah. And they made some small tweaks, right? Which is like, okay, Beta is probably the best, and that's also why Meta's stock has kind of held up. Is the more it just looks like Meta is, it will be able to take advantage of some of these like optimizations to improve Llama, right? Llama
Yeah.
5 will address kind of what DeepSeek has been doing. But anyways,
Yeah. And then, well, when I saw these different news clips coming out, my first thought was, you know, Chinese knockoff,
yeah,
basically. Like that's what they're good at, right? The other thing that came out was like Jensen was trying to smooth over the news, and his narrative is, and one thing was like they're using Nvidia chips. They're just older chips, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so his thing was like, yeah, see, we're showing and we've proven that Nvidia is the backbone of
yeah,
AI.
yeah,
So these are older chips, and they can do what they just did with it, but the newer
yeah,
chips is what's going to enable more advanced technology.
yeah,
And then the other thing was like, I think a bunch of companies have been out there articulating how the accuracy rate of the model is actually pretty low.
yeah,
It's like only 17% accurate,
yeah,
which means most of the stuff that you're going to ask it or do with it, it can probably complete and answer for you naive or common, questions, but anything more advanced, it's not going to do well. So it is a cheap model. It's probably good for standard everyday conversation,
yeah.
but anything more advanced than that is not capable of doing accurately.
Yeah, that was one track that I saw is that again, like this final thing of where they were showcasing performance, it was a very specific whatever area that or specific thing that they created in order to like do the benchmark, but overall it wasn't that great. And I think some of it's just also the way that it is built. Apparently, it's built very compartmentalized, meaning based off of your question, right? It only taps into a specific subset of the data or the intelligence to pull that, right? And so that was why it was kind of reducing the cost is instead of using the entire model, it found what is the expert part and we'll just use that. And that's kind of how they minimize some of the costs. Anyways,
Yeah.
I feel like some of that was already being experimented with, but I think it hasn't been fully, I don't know, implemented or explored. But it's like, I guess it was kind of like a novel approach. Whether it's actually viable, to your point, like, 70% accuracy rate is not.
17%.
Yeah, 17% accuracy.
Yeah.
Full.
Yeah, so I think this is good for AI, which is what a lot of people actually have been saying, like a cheap, efficient, but less accurate model is probably good because when the products become big, you're always going to have your high end, your low end, and that's how you become mainstream because you can cater to all segments
Yeah,
and markets, right?
yeah,
And so, like, yeah, use DeepSeek, but with these caveats, right?
yeah,
Around how accurate it is, and
yeah,
obviously don't
yeah,
rely on your health for it. It'll improve. I think it will improve over time, and then it'll hone in on specific use cases that it does really well at. I have a couple of friends who have been using it, and they actually think it's very good
yeah,
for what they use it for.
yeah. Yeah, I think the real story on this is going to be it opens up more smaller companies getting into like, let's say, direct
Yeah,
competition
not
with like,
having to pay so much.
yeah, with OpenAI and Meta, right? Where the cost of developing and implementing this is at a reasonable scale. Because I think it was getting to the point where, any type of startup that was going to tackle this space, realistically, they would need billions in funding to be able to keep up with like just the CapEx spend of Meta and OpenAI. Which, by the way, apparently OpenAI is pursuing another funding round with Masasan. Surprise, shocker, in SoftBank. Like some ridiculous value. Like this is even more ridiculous than the last time. It's like up to like $400 billion now
Crazy.
market cap. So, anyways, to be expected since they're partnering. But yeah, that was also the biggest news coming out of this week was SoftBank is leading kind of like their next funding round. But anyways, the
It's
point
one of those
being
things where
is,
it's like so much you're taking so much money. I mean, obviously it's like IPO is destined. I think there's also rumor
yeah,
they might IPO, right, this year?
I don't know. I feel like these funding rounds means private for longer, but you never
Yeah.
know. I know Sam has said he wants to IPO, but um,
Yeah.
they might. Well, we'll also see how the market is this year,
Yeah.
right? That's also the other consideration.
Well, talking about stocks and as you were earlier, Nvidia stock is down 18% since the DeepSeek
This is
news came
like,
out.
yeah,
I think Nvidia's earnings is sometime in February, sometime this month. So everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens there. But my prediction is that it'll come back up after that earnings report.
I hope so. I finally bought. Well, I mean, I had a small position, but it's like,
Yeah.
finally, too late now.
It's a good time to buy Nvidia if you haven't had it. Not financial advice, but
Yeah,
my personal opinion. And I also put some money into the stock last week,
same. I was like, when it hit around whatever 117,
120.
118,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, below 120. Okay, that seems very attractive. We'll see if I regret it or not, because I guess the tariffs on Saturday, or not announced, that went live.
Just depends on how long you plan to hold it.
Yeah,
Like 10 years from now, you won't regret it,
yeah.
but maybe
Apparently,
months from now, you'll regret it.
the news was Jensen met with Trump finally
Yeah,
to convince him, and apparently he wasn't able to convince him because the tariffs on China are
yeah.
still going up. Anyways, we'll see.
The other DeepSeek news, companies and even countries have been banning DeepSeek.
Of course.
Some app store bans, can't download it. Texas governor, where you are,
Hmm.
banned DeepSeek on all federal
Yeah.
devices. Uh, and yeah, this China US war, because isn't TikTok still banned in the app stores?
Apparently, I haven't checked because since it's been working, I just assume. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I saw news of like iPhones with TikTok installed have been selling for thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not on the app stores. But if you have it, you have it
So
still.
yeah, DeepSeek is being banned, and privacy concerns, obviously.
If you read the T's and C's, of course nobody does, it basically gives you you're basically giving them access to everything on your phone, literally. Any taps, any gestures, any text, you're basically allowing it if you install the DeepSeek app. Technically, TikTok has the same similar T's and C's apparently, which I'm like, oh great. There goes all my banking information.
You have your bank information on TikTok?
Well, no, on my phone, but like TikTok's T's and C's allow it to read your gestures or read your screen or read anything on your device, apparently.
I feel like that's a violation of Apple's terms.
But yeah, that's what they were saying about DeepSeek. DeepSeek, you also give DeepSeek permission to basically collect every single piece of data on your phone.
Well, speaking of data, there was a news story that came out saying that a data leak exposed 1 million sensitive records. So last week, the cybersecurity researchers at Wiz Research revealed that DeepSeek had a data, and let's see, does this say what the leak was about? Oh, the database contains sensitive information such as chat logs, system details, operational metadata, API secrets, and sensitive log streams. Now, doesn't say if that was only specific to DeepSeek, the app,
Yeah,
or other device
yeah,
logs,
yeah,
but China's got your info. I have not used DeepSeek yet to date.
yeah.
Uh,
No, I haven't
Mostly
either.
because, yeah, last week I said, nah, I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, like it's like, all right, I'm pretty sure TikTok has it, but like DeepSeek to me, that's a clear, it will use whatever information it can. And like,
Yeah.
just don't want to.
Maybe that's why I get so many scam text messages now of people just texting me saying, hello.
Ah,
And
no, I get a ton of those.
I immediately just delete and report.
Yeah, same. Like I need like a secret number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a Google Voice number that I don't use, but it's just for like, maybe I should use it.
Well, I think the message here from both of us is just stay safe. Like, don't get FOMO in using new tech because everyone else is using it. If it's from China, be extra careful and just don't put sensitive information in a place where
Yeah, yeah,
you don't have
yeah.
ultra confidence. Like most of my sensitive information is in 1Password. The day that 1Password gets hacked will be the day
Screwed.
I
Yeah,
am
same
like
here.
MF
Yeah,
lawsuit.
yeah. I'll be so screwed. Luckily, I've said in previous episodes, I've liquidated most of my crypto. My biggest holding is Solana right now. So I've just been slowly accumulating. I might regret it later when it goes down to 80 again or 20 where it initially started. But yeah, I've been slowly DCAing. So like,
Yeah. Well,
we'll see.
I think I told you last time or texted you that I dumped my XRP. So I'm
Lucky
happy I did
you.
that now. But yes, I'm looking at these GC prices coming down and I may come back in. We'll see.
Yeah. I've found an interesting way to DCA. And
Yeah.
so I've started, I don't know, I think I've talked about it a couple episodes ago. So I've started messing around with liquidity pools, at least on Solana.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's actually a interesting way to DCA across a wide swath of price levels, which I found kind of cool. So basically, provide the liquidity. I get paid a certain percentage for the transactions of being part of that pool, for
Yeah.
people who don't know.
And you lock up your crypto, right?
Yeah, it's really not even like permanently locked up. I mean, it's there in the pool in like this liquidity pool, right? And then I can just withdraw it whenever. Or if the price collapses out of like the price range where I have it set, and then just nothing happens.
So it's like a high yield savings with a stop loss.
Yeah,
What's the risk?
there is none.
Sounds too good to be true.
I know. The only risk is because you're like, okay, so one of the risks is I was doing like a Trump Sol pool. And of course, when Melania launched, it collapsed Trump. And so I ended up with a lot of Trump above where the current price is. So that's the danger. If you
Mm.
don't want to hold whatever coin and the price collapses or the price goes below what you want it, then that's the problem. But with like Sol, like I'm okay, like at the levels that I'm in the pool with.
Mhm.
And so to me, it's like it's not. There's no risk.
Okay.
But anyways,
Well, we know that crypto is kinda crashing because of the whole tariff situation, which
which is like
we can
it's
talk
kind
about
of
another time, but I
yeah,
thought it was I was interested because the thought is that tariffs are going to increase inflation, but usually crypto's a hedge against inflation.
yeah. It's weird, right? It shouldn't impact crypto, right? At least that's how everybody likes to talk. Well, crypto is its own thing. It's not whatever. Like a Bitcoin's a Bitcoin. One soul is one soul. Yet it's still heavily tied to fiat,
Yeah,
you know?
but I think to me, I think it's a dip, it's a pullback before another pop. So, I think we get one more pop this year to all-time
Maybe.
highs. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen predictions either way. Either this is the beginning of the actual alt season bull run, or we see
Beginning of the winter.
beginning of the winter and summer. It's like what? So yeah, so definitely don't all in yet. Um,
Alright, well, we'll keep it a day with DeepSeek. The findings are gonna continue to evolve as time goes on, and it's a good and a bad for AI. Mostly a good, just be careful using it.
yep.
Alright,
All right.
episode 47 in the books.
In the books.
Getting to 50. Almost a year of doing
I
deconstructing.
know, right? I was like, wow. When we first started, I was like, there's no way. We are we're gonna make it to 50.
Alright,
All right.
gonna go stop soon. Yeah, it's supposed to be off and on, but we'll
Okay.
see what happens.
All right. Stay safe.
Next week.
See ya.